Okay, this shall be Gutters, Chapter 3. Just a warning, in future chapters, there will be tears. Okay, I'm gonna start now, because it's late, mate. Sealand wakes in the morning to the sound of muffled coughing. He stifles a yawn and rolls over onto his side, his cheeks pressed against Denmark's arm, and looks up at him as he shifts out of the covers. Denmark is on his back, eyes closed, and has a hand placed lightly over his lips, his other trapped under Peter, as the boy rubs the sleep from his face and props himself up on his elbows. "Are you okay?" Denmark blinks groggily and offers him a wan smile, his hand dropping to ruffle his hair. "Yeah, fine. Just swallowed wrong is all." He sighs and tucks the corner of the blanket back down around Sealand's shoulders and motions for him to lie back down. "It's still early. You can sleep for a little while longer if you want to." Peter shakes his head and rests his chin back down on Denmark's shoulder. "No, I'm awake." He peers up at him when he turns his head and coughs again. "Are you sure you're okay?" Denmark just grins and mushes Sealand's head into the pillow. "I told you, I'm fine. You ain't gotta worry about me." Sealand squirms out from under his hand and turns over onto his back, crossing his arms and huffing indignantly. I'm not worried. I'm just asking." His eyes flit briefly to meet Denmark's. "It's just 'cause Burwald used to say you're too stupid to ask for help is all, so, you know." He looks down. "Don't be stupid." Denmark's face softens, and he pushes himself up enough to sit against the wall. "Hey, I'm here, aren't I?" He nudges Peter's arm, smirking. "You ever heard the saying, 'too stupid to give up'?" Sealand nods. "He said that about you, too." He laughs and scrubs a hand down his face. "Yeah," he says softly, pushing his hair back. "I'm sure he did." Peter pauses, swallowing the thick, watery feeling that starts to rise in his throat, and fists the blankets. He looks back at Denmark, watching as he lets his hands fall back into his lap and leans heavily against the wall, eyes shutting and exhaling, his face bearing exhaustion despite having just slept. He really does look different than he used to. He's all sharp angles now, dusted with dirt and grime and bruised looking, so unlike the broad figure he once was, back when he still came to Stockholm during the summers to help Sweden put together new furniture or fix up Peter's treehouse. His eyes blink open, and Peter reaches forward to crawl his fingers into the mud-flecked fabric of the Dane's shirt, stock and silent except for the small breaths that catch in the blanket when he turns his face down. Denmark sighs again and rests his hand on Sealand's shoulder. "I know, kiddo, I know." He allows the silence to fall over them while Peter struggles to compose himself, but after a moment he squeezes the boy's arm and sits him up to look him straight on, his dead eye not really focused on anything, but the other staring at him seriously. "Listen, Peter, I want you to come with me." He jerks his head into the direction of the door. "I can't stay here, and I don't want to leave you with these people. They obviously aren't taking care of you, and I don't trust them to keep you safe." Peter wipes his eyes. I don't need anyone to take care of me. I'm old enough to look out for myself." He sniffs. Denmark nods. "It's even more dangerous out there, and I know I'm probably not as fun as I used to be, but I can't just leave you here." He smirks and claps his palm against Peter's back. "If you come with me, I can at least keep an eye on you while you look out for yourself." Sealand folds his hands in his lap and looks at Denmark curiously. "You said you were in Italy before, right? And now you're here, so..." He frowns. "Where are you going?" Denmark bows his head slightly and sighs. Well, I'm trying to get back home, I guess." He stretches over the edge of the cot and grabs his pack from the floor, hauling it up and drawing out a ratty, waterlogged road map. He starts to carefully unfold it. "You remember the Oresund Bridge, right?" Peter nods. We used to take it whenever we came to visit you. Right. Well, one of the boat captains told me that parts of the bridge are still standing. Not on my side, but the part that connects to Malmo. I don't know how to pronounce that. He lays the map out over his lap, and Sealand shifts forward to look at it. There is a long, thick line drawn out in black marker that starts in Italy and cuts up in almost a straight line through Switzerland to Germany, curving towards Poland and ending at the border of the Baltic Sea. If part of the bridge made it through what happened, I'm willing to bet Malmo did too. He taps the map with his index finger. That's where I'm going. Sealand bites his lip. You're going to Sweden? Denmark nods. That's the plan. But don't you want to go home? Your home, I mean? Denmark's jaw sets, and he stares down at the map in his hands. There isn't anything left, he says gruffly. Half of my land is under water, and the rest of it is too burnt out to be livable. I don't have anything to go back to. Peter pauses awkwardly. I'm sorry. Denmark shakes his head. Don't be. You don't have anything to be sorry about. He offers him a lopsided smile and sighs. Thanks, though. He motions to the map again. Anyway, my plan is to go through Poland. There isn't any fuel left, so none of the old civilian barges are going out anymore, but there's a rumor floating around in a few shelters that there is still someone running a boat out of Shopsk. I don't know. Nobody wants to give me a straight answer, but I've heard from more than a few people that the guy doing it has a stupid way of talking. Peter's eyes widen. Do you think it's Felix? Could be. Point is, there's a chance that someone is still seaborne, and the water is too unpredictable now to take a rowboat, so my plan is hanging on this guy actually existing. He exhales loudly. If he doesn't, then I'm not sure what to do next. He smirks. Probably swim or something. How are you going to get to Poland? Peter gingerly takes the map and peers over it. Do you have a car? Denmark shakes his head. No fuel left, remember? And even if there was, the roads are too warped to drive on. A lot of the main highways don't even exist anymore. All the heat melted it into the rocks. He clicks his tongue. I've just been walking. Peter gapes at him. You walked here? From Nepal's? Wait. From Naples? I don't know. Further than that, I started out in Messina. What? How did you wind up in Messina? Denmark shrugs. Same way you got here. One of the civilian envoys picked me up. I don't remember much about getting there, though, or anything, really. Last thing I remember is somebody hauling me out of the back of a truck in Brovst. Hang on. Finally. Sorry, there was a hair in my mouth. You don't remember what happened? The flashes? Nope. He shakes his head. People have told me stories, but beyond that, I've got nothing. It took me a week after I woke up in the shelter to even remember who I was. Oh. Peter pauses and starts to fold the map back up. You're lucky. You remember it? He nods. Kind of. It was just really hot. Denmark makes a non-committal noise in the back of his throat and tucks the map away in his bag, nodding. It's good that you remember some of it, though. Somebody's gonna have to tell the next generation about it. Sealand snorts. Do you really think we'll last that long? I do. How come? Humanity made it this far. He leans back and rubs absently at his chest. Too stupid to give up, remember? Peter shakes his head and draws his knees up to his chin. I guess. He hugs his legs and stares at his feet. So how come you want to go to Malmo? Denmark is quiet for a moment before he shifts his hips up and reaches into his pockets. I don't want I don't want you to get your hopes up, but I'm trying to find everyone else. Malmo is a good starting point, and as long as the flooding hasn't gotten worse, I'll be able to get to Norway and Finland from Sweden. You think they're alive? They've all got mountains and remote places to hide. My whole kingdom's flat as a ship biscuit, but I still scraped by. He withdraws his hand and sits back down. Besides, Burwald knows if I made it out, and he didn't, I'd never stop giving him hell for it. But, Peter bites his lip. Someone told me that Scandinavia was gone, and it was impossible to go back to Sweden. What makes you so sure? Denmark sighs. When I woke up in the bunker in Italy, I literally had nothing on me. No clothes, no shoes, zip. Somebody pilfered everything while I was too sick to do anything about it. So once I was up and moving again, I had to pick clothes off of dead men. He reaches out and takes Peter's hand, pressing something warm into his palm. I found this when I was going through someone's bag. Seelan uncurls his fingers. Nestled on his hand is a small gold cross-shaped pin. The guy who had it came on the same boat as me. I asked his sister about it, and she said he traded a man for it before the envoy found them outside of Stockholm. He looks down, his face darkening slightly. I know it's a long shot, but it's the best lead I've found. Peter turns the pen over in his hand. It's untarnished, obviously polished daily, and he can see his reflection in the dull metal, thin and alarmed, staring back at him. It could belong to anyone, really. He has seen clips like it before, back when jewelry was actually worn and something to be proud of. You think it's Norway's? Denmark shrugs. But isn't that kind of... He trails off and closes his fingers around the pen. Unlikely? Denmark leans back again, but still doesn't meet Peter's eyes, his shoulders sagging and his shirt slipping down one arm. He sighs softly and rakes a hand through his hair. Some hope is better than no hope. The clip in his hand suddenly feels a lot heavier. He clears his throat and gently hands the pen back to Denmark, placing it in his palm and curling the older man's fingers around it. I want to come with you, he says after a moment, watching as Denmark carefully tucks the pen back away in his pocket. He pulls it back enough to nod, stern and serious, and starts to scoot off the cot. We can find them together. He bends down and retrieves his backpack from underneath the bed, the clasp clacking when he snaps it open and begins to fold up the thin wool blanket, placing it inside with what rations he has left. Denmark grins and gets up as well. He stretches, his back cracking, and grabs his own bag. Only take what you think you'll need, he says, and he starts to pull his boots back on. Do you have a coat? Peter shakes his head. No. Is it cold outside? Sometimes. Denmark raises a curious eyebrow. How long has it been since you've left the bunker? I haven't. Not at all. No, I didn't want to see. Shit. Denmark coughs in the crook of his elbow and begins to rummage in his pack. You aren't going to like what you see. I'm going to tell you right now there isn't anything left. Everything has literally been burnt up. He pulls a ratty bandana from the depths of his bag and a pair of dark blue smoking goggles a moment later. No one has tried to clean up, so he bites the inside of his cheek. There are a lot of people still on the road. Bodies, I mean. He motions for Peter to sit down on the edge of the cot and moves in front of him, tying the bandana around his neck and fixing it on the back of his head. I try to avoid the main roads, though. I'll try to keep you from seeing them. Peter wrinkles his nose when Denmark pulls the bandana up over his face. It smells like dirt and sweat. How come you don't go on the roads? Isn't that faster? Denmark's hands pause behind his ears, and he shakes his head. Yeah, it is. He leans over his bag. Yes. Yeah,